You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there's a lot of NFL to get to. Maybe some college basketball at the end, along with this day in sports history. But I'm just going to jump right into the NFL. And please indulge me for a little bit, because I really want to talk about Robbie Anderson. He said in an appearance on NFL Live yesterday that he really wants to be back with the Jets. This comes on the heels of a report that the Jets haven't shut the door in re-signing him. And for a while, it looked like he was going to leave in free agency. But the latest developments have been positive. So there's a chance, keyword chance, that Robbie Anderson can be back with the Jets next year. I like Robbie Anderson. I think Robbie Anderson is a very good wide receiver. He is not great. Let's get that clear. He's never had a 1,000-yard season. He's never caught more than 63 passes in a season. And he's never caught more than 7 touchdowns in a season. And from all of the reports, he wants a $10 million plus contract. That's not total value, that's AAV. And he'll want it long term because he's going to be 27 when the season starts. This is his moment to get his big boy contract. And he deserves a big boy contract. There's no question, but the key phrase for the Jets under Douglas and Gase is asset allocation. And you can argue from now until the cows come home whether you like Adam Gase or not. The simple fact is he's coming back. And he has a lot to say in what the Jets do. And I think Douglas agrees with him that asset allocation is really, really important. This wide receiver draft class is probably the deepest in, I don't want to say NFL history, but I can't think of a draft class off the top of my head where the wide receivers have been this talented. According to ESPN, they have 19 wide receivers in the top 100 of draft-eligible prospects. That means that almost a fifth of the top 100 players in this draft are wide receivers. If you're the Jets, you have to think to yourself, do I want to throw a bunch of money at Robbie Anderson? Because he's getting over $10 million. I'd be stunned if he didn't. He's better than Jamison Crowder. He's better than Golden Tate. He's better than Devin Funchess. He has a better track record than Devontae Parker. He's getting over $10 million. Do you want to give him that contract? Or do you want to use one of your picks in day 2 on a wide receiver? there are a lot of people mocking a wide receiver to the Jets at 11. Whether it's Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, whoever. I do not want the Jets to take a wide receiver at 11. And the reason that I don't is twofold. Number one, this wide receiver class is so stacked that you'll be able to get similar-ish production later in the draft. There isn't much of a drop-off between a guy like Henry Ruggs and Michael Pittman. Is Ruggs the better prospect? Yes. But Pittman will give you similar production, and you'll be able to get him in day 2. Number 2, the Jets will probably still have a glaring need at cornerback when free agency is all said and done. You take a look at the cornerbacks that are eligible to be drafted. It's Jeff Okudah, C.J. Henderson, and then everyone else. Okudah is much better than Henderson, and I even want the Jets to trade up for him, if they can get him. I mean, realize something. The Jets have 4 picks in the top 100. They have the ammo to trade up. So if Douglas is as enamored with Okudah as I am, I think Jeff Okudah is going to be a great player in this league for a long time. He reminds me so much of Marshawn Lattimore, it's not even funny. If Douglas is as enamored with Okudah as I am, it makes sense to trade up for him. Maybe they'll wait until 11 rolls around to take C.J. Henderson. I'm sure Henderson will be there. I'd be kind of surprised if the Jets took a wide receiver at 11. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, Jacob, aren't the Jets going to have a lot of money to spend in free agency? Well, the answer is yes. According to OverTheCap.com, the Jets, as of right now, have just under $49.5 million in cap space. Now, this has not been edited to reflect Trumaine Johnson being cut, so that number is going to go up to $52.5. The Jets can make room cutting other guys. So, let's say that the Jets will have $60 million in cap space, because Darryl Roberts is $6 million alone. They have a lot of scrubs on the bottom of the roster that they can cut. Nate Hairston, Josh Bellamy, Jonathan Harrison. They can get to 60 mil very easily. Let's use 60 million as their number, just because it's a nice round number. If you follow my plan for the Jets, which I outlined in my off-season preview, and spoke like an NPR host. Can I tell you why I did that, by the way? I recorded that podcast really late at night, and I didn't know if I'd wake everyone else in my house up while I was recording it. I mean, now I know that I can speak as loud as I want, and they can sleep through it, so that won't happen again, but that's why it sounded the way it did. It's not bad by any stretch, it's just not this. But regardless, let's say the Jets bring back guys like Beachum, Demaryius Thomas, Brandon Copeland, Bilal Powell, Jordan Jenkins, Brandon Shell. That's going to take, let's say, $10 million off the books. And that's not counting bringing Robbie Anderson back, by the way. So that leaves the Jets with $50 million in cap space. The Jets need to find a backup quarterback, a left guard, a center, an edge rusher, and a cornerback. Can they do that with $50 million and bringing back Robbie Anderson? Because think about it. Douglas isn't going to do what Maccagnan did, which was sign guys to these one-year deals where he could get out of them early. Remember Antonio Cromartie? Remember when he brought Antonio Cromartie back at a 4-year, $32 million contract, and he cut him after 1 year, and it didn't cost the Jets anything? Douglas isn't going to do that. He's going to make significant commitments to these guys. And you know what? They've earned it. Joe Thuney, Connor McGovern, Jadeveon Clowney, Byron Jones. You want those guys locked up long term. Those are franchise cornerstones. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, Jacob, you just named 5 positions, one of them being a backup, and you're giving the Jets $50 million in cap space. How does that make sense? That the Jets have to be financially responsible? Well, think about it. Jadeveon Clowney is getting $20 million. He's not going to get Khalil Mack type money. I'd be stunned if he got that. But he's going to get more than Von Miller. Byron Jones is probably going to become the highest paid cornerback in NFL history. That means he's getting over $15 million a year. Xavier Howard has the record at $15,050,000. I don't think Jones is going to be okay with $15,050,001. I think he'll want 16. Joe Thuney and Connor McGovern are probably each going to want $8 million, at least. And realize something, when you're signing these guys to these big deals, you can't worry about just this year. You have to think about how these deals are going to affect your cap down the line also. Now, will the cap go up? Will the cap stay the same? Will the cap go down? I have no idea. You can't have too many big deals on the books. It handcuffs you going forward. The Jets ran into that issue with Mike Tannenbaum. It's why there are so many people screaming for the Jets to make big moves now while you have Sam Darnold on his rookie contract. You're probably going to have to re-sign him, assuming he takes the next step. I don't know if I would re-sign him right now. Do I want to give a good, not great quarterback a big contract? I don't know. What's going to happen with Jamal Adams? Can Quinnen Williams get back on track? These are all the things that the Jets need to think about before they go hog wild in free agency. Now, sign Jadeveon Clowney, sign Byron Jones, sign Joe Thuney, sign Connor McGovern, sign a backup quarterback, bring the guys back who you need to bring back, and you have, I'm just doing a ballpark here, 20 mil in cap space? You add on the commitments that you'll have after the draft, that's going to leave you with probably about 13 mil in cap space? Yeah, that's fair. You can work with that throughout the season. Does Robbie Anderson fit there? Who would you rather have? Robbie Anderson on a big contract, along with everyone else that the Jets are going to sign? Or would you rather have one of these rookie wide receivers? If your answer is Robbie Anderson, I understand it. You know what Robbie Anderson is. And you don't want to lose a guy like him. I understand that. I respect that. But there are going to be a bunch of people that say that guys like T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, or Donovan Peoples-Jones have higher ceilings than Robbie Anderson, and they'd rather the Jets take one of them. I understand that argument too. Realize we're not talking about Jerry Rice here. We're talking about a very good wide receiver, not a great one. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens come Monday that's when the legal tampering period starts. I'd love for Robbie Anderson to be back, but I wouldn't bet the rent on it. Alright, moving on now to the Tennessee Titans, and a story that has been beat to death all offseason. I haven't talked about it a lot. I have talked about it. I just haven't beaten it into the ground like other shows have. Because I believe that when I state my opinion on something, I don't need to repeat it a million times. But this has popped up again. Ian Rappaport said that the Titans are focused on extending Ryan Tannehill. And they want to lock him up as opposed to going after a guy like Brady. Firstly, let me just say that I don't think Tom Brady is going anywhere. I think he's going to stay with the Patriots. Will he hit free agency? Probably. Will he take meetings with other teams? Maybe. But I still think he's going to end back up with the Patriots. I've been pretty consistent in saying that, and this is the last I'm going to speak on the matter. So with Brady off the board, of course the Titans are going to bring back Tannehill. What's their other option? Phillip Rivers? Can you honestly say that Phillip Rivers is that much better than Ryan Tannehill at this point in his career? Realize what the Titans need. The Titans need a guy who's going to push them over the edge in the playoffs. That's not Phillip Rivers. He's never done that. He's one of the worst playoff quarterbacks in history. I don't think Ryan Tannehill is a great quarterback, but I'll tell you, I'd rather have him than Rivers. The Titans should bring Tannehill back. Yes. I agree with them 100% to prioritize Tannehill over any of the other quarterbacks out there. Now, if Tom Brady is really thinking about going to the Titans, yes, you sign Tom Brady. I don't care that Brady's a million years old. If you were to write down on a piece of paper what the Tennessee Titans need, it'd look a lot like Tom Brady. But, like I said, he's staying with the Patriots, I think. So, yeah, you prioritize Tannehill over any of the other quarterbacks. And you definitely prioritize him over Jack Conklin and Derrick Henry. Quarterback is more important than right tackle and running back. Now, if I was starting a team from scratch, who would I rather have? Tannehill, Conklin, or Henry? It's probably in order, Henry, Conklin, Tannehill. But there was a report that came out that said that the Titans are hoping to be able to use their franchise tag on Conklin and their transition tag on Derrick Henry. So they can bring all three of them back. Now, God only knows how that's going to work out with the CBA, but it's a really complicated process. There are going to be some people saying that the Titans should lock up Conklin and Henry long term and then look to address the quarterback position because all they'll need is a game manager. Because that's what Tannehill is. I don't care that he had a magical year last year. We have to see him do it again. He's never had a year like this before. Has he shown flashes of this? Yes. But he's never been able to put it all together like this. He finally stayed healthy, which is a miracle. I like what the Titans are doing. They're doing this exactly the way I would. They're prioritizing the most important position in sports over anything else. You can't fault them for that. You want to tell me they should go after a game manager and bring back the two better players in Conklin and Henry? Don't chance it. I understand that. I respect that argument. But I would rather they lock up Tannehill. He's earned it. Alright, so Ian Rappaport was busy yesterday, In addition to talking about Tannehill, he also said that Gabe Jackson and Robert Griffin III are generating trade interest. When he said that RG3 is generating trade interest, I had to check to see if I went back in time to 2012. And I guess I'll start with him. How on earth can you trade for Robert Griffin III? You can't find another backup? At least I hope you're having him as a backup. You're going to have him start? This guy hasn't been a starter since 2016. And when he did that for the Browns, he wasn't that good. And if you're telling me you want him as a backup, why not just sign a guy like Blake Bortles or Chase Daniel? Why would you give up a draft pick for Robert Griffin III? That one caught me by surprise when Rappaport said that. Look, I understand that backup quarterback is one of the most underrated positions in all of sports. How many seasons have been tanked because the starting quarterback got hurt and the team didn't have a good backup? But do you really think that RG3 is one of the best backups in the league? Because I don't. I think he's a solid backup. I don't think he's great. You want to tell me you like him because he's mobile? And he has starting experience? Okay, fine. But don't give up a draft pick for him. Please. I mean, I like RG3. I think it's a damn shame how his NFL career shook out. The guy came into the NFL like a bat out of hell, won Rookie of the Year, gets misused by the Shanahans. They handle his injury about as well as the Yankees did with Severino and Judge. And then Kirk Cousins comes in and is able to stay healthy and looks probably better than RG3. But Cousins never should have gotten that opportunity. If RG3 had stayed healthy, or if he had a competent coaching staff, the sky would have been the limit. Now, I understand that he never earned the opportunity to start again. He tried it in Cleveland. I thought it was a good move by the Browns, but it didn't work out. And it's clear that he's not cut out to be a starter in this league anymore. There was a time when he was, not anymore. Do not trade for this guy. Sign another backup. Don't trade for one. And for the love of God, if you're having him start, oh my God. It's 2020, not 2012. Gabe Jackson is kind of interesting, though. I would trade for Gabe Jackson. This guy has been good ever since he stepped foot in the NFL out of Mississippi State. Did he get hurt earlier this year? Yeah, he missed the first 5 games of the season. But he can still play. According to Pro Football Focus, last year he had a 61.8 overall grade. I understand that that's the worst grade of his career, but 61.8 is still good. It's not great, it's good. If the Jets move on from Brian Winters, it makes sense to trade for Jackson. Although I don't know if they'd want to trade for another Raiders offensive guard considering how Osemele shook out. But if you need a right guard, go after Gabe Jackson. That's fine. He's one of the best pass blockers in the league. I'll tell you right now, if I was John Gruden, I wouldn't trade him. Unless I got like a day 2 pick for him. No way would I trade him. I like Jackson. I'd keep him around. You know that I like Gruden. You know that I like what he's doing in Oakland. Well, now Las Vegas. Man, that's going to take some getting used to. But I wouldn't trade him. I would not trade Gabe Jackson. If he's really available, then other teams should definitely go after him. Sticking with the theme of right guards possibly being on different teams next year, even though they shouldn't be, Dave Burkett of the Detroit Free Press said that the Lions are going to let Graham Glasgow walk in free agency. You remember how I said the team should go after Gabe Jackson? If you can't get him, Glasgow's a damn good consolation prize. Actually, Glasgow may be better than Gabe Jackson. I don't understand what's with these teams letting these good offensive linemen walk. What's your goal? To just replace him cheaper in the draft? Or to sign a better one in free agency? No. Offensive line continuity is so important to a quarterback. And you've got Matthew Stafford, who's not getting any younger. The time is now to win with him. And now you're getting rid of one of his best linemen? What are you going to do? Blow the whole thing up? If you're going to blow the whole thing up, then trade Stafford. That's the only way this makes sense. I understand that the Lions have been garbage recently. What else is new? But you still have a really good quarterback in Stafford. You've got a really good young wide receiver in Kenny Golladay. If you're going to blow things up, fine. I don't mind that. But then do it the right way. Trade Stafford. Don't just rejigger the team. That doesn't work. If you have a good player, don't try to replace him with a great one. Use your assets on positions of need. It's why I want the Jets to bring back Brandon Shell. Shell, when he came back from injury, looked really good. There are some people that want the Jets to let Shell walk in free agency, and there was a report that came out a while ago that I talked about that said that the Jets were interested in giving Jack Conklin a bunch of money. I would rather the Jets re-sign Shell. He's going to be cheaper. He knows the system. He knows Darnold. They have chemistry. Don't try to replace a good player with a great one. Use your assets on positions of need. If you still have leftover money or leftover draft picks, okay, fine. Bolster those positions with good, not great players. But the Lions have a bunch of needs. They have to drastically overhaul their defense. Outside of Trey Flowers, Tracy Walker, Tavon Wilson, and Devon Kennard, no one else on that defense played well last year. Use your assets to address that. And then if you can find a better player than Glasgow, I don't know if you'll be able to, but if you can, then do it. But solve your areas of need first. I have a sore throat, a stiff neck, my elbow feels funny, and I have a gunshot wound to the head. What's going to be treated first? You treat the head wound first. Then you deal with everything else. Come on. It's not that hard. Alright, I'll touch on the Texans locking up Kaimi Fairbairn to a big contract. 4 years at over $4 million a year. The exact number is $17.65 million. Makes him the third highest paid kicker in the NFL when you look at AAV. I'll hit on it really briefly. I like Fairbairn. Good kicker. He'll hit 80% of his field goals, 90% of his extra points. He's a good kickoff guy. If you have a good kicker, you do not let him walk. The Texans realized it, and they brought back a good kicker in Fairbairn. Is it an overpay? Yeah. He's not the third best kicker in the NFL. He may be top 10, if I'm being generous. I wouldn't have paid this much to bring him back, but I don't mind the Texans bringing him back. If you have a bad kicker, it shows. Remember Jets-Bills Week 1? Kari Vedvik? Oh, man. The seminal reason that the Jets lost that game. He put Ali Haji Shank to shame. Alright, I'll briefly hit on St. Mary's Gonzaga, and then I'll do this day in sports history. That game yesterday is why so many people are high on Gonzaga. Anytime that you can put up 84 points in a college game, especially in a conference title game, people are going to take notice. And to do it against a good St. Mary's team, a St. Mary's team that I think should be in the tournament. I've heard some people say that they're a definite to be in the tournament, which is good. I don't necessarily think I'd go that far, but they should be in. No question. When you put up 84 points against that team, that's really good. Now, they didn't play well in the first half, but in the second half, Mark Few made some great halftime adjustments. They did a great job of getting the ball out of Jordan Ford's hands. Ford dominated the first half of that game. Then, in the second half, Gonzaga keyed in on him. They made Malik Fitz take more shots. They made Tommy Kuss take more shots. St. Mary's can't win when Ford isn't taking those shots. Fitz is a good player. He's not a great player. Ford is really, really good. I don't know if I'd call him great, but he's one of the most underrated players in the nation. Gonzaga did an excellent job of keying in on him and pulling away in the second half. And their offense exploded. Dick Vitale was raving about Drew Timme. Timme, to me, was an afterthought for Gonzaga this year. He feasted against St. Mary's because St. Mary's doesn't have size. I don't know if St. Mary's has anyone 6'10". It certainly didn't seem like it. Timme was bullying them in the post. Ayayi went off. Gilder went off. It is a great sign for Gonzaga if they can blow a team out without their best player, Killian Tilly, having a good game. He only put up 7 shots, and he only scored 9 points. He's usually good for 15 points a game. Petrusev had a double-double. Kispert played well. This bodes well for Gonzaga going into the big dance. I'm still not ridiculously high on them, but this was a good win for him. There's no way around it. Alright, time for this day in sports history. On this day, in 1972, Zach Wheat passed away at the age of 83. It's okay if you don't know who he is. He played in the 19-teens and the 1920s. But in that time, he was one of the most underrated players in the game. While Babe Ruth was getting all the headlines, Wheat was putting up a much better average. He retired with a career .317 batting average. His first full season was 1910, where he played every game in left field for the then Brooklyn Superbas. Firstly, let me just say that we need more names like that. But second up, could you imagine a player doing that now? Playing every game? We need more of that, I'm telling you. We played in 156 games that year, and he had .284. It was the second lowest batting average of his career, but it led the team. The fact that Wheat, who was a rookie, was able to lead the team in batting average, I mean, you don't need me to tell you how impressive that is. In 1911, and bear in mind this was during the dead ball era, where no one was hitting home runs, Wheat hit 5. That was enough for people to realize that he had power. He followed it up by hitting 8 home runs, then 7, 9, 5, 9, 5, 9. That put him in the top 10 in the National League every year. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. In 1912, he married Daisy Kerr Forsman, who basically became his agent. And she encouraged him to hold out for a better contract each year. Back then, with the reserve clause, no one was on multi-year deals. It was always 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, and the team could get rid of you whenever they wanted. Forsman realized that Wheat, as one of the best players in the game, could get a lot of money. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of his salary records. The only thing I can tell you is, according to Baseball Reference, in 1910 he made $2,100, in 1913 he made $3,300, and in 1915 he made $5,350. So in current day money, he went from making a little over $57,000 in 1910 to a little over $134,000 in 5 years. An $80,000 jump back then was unheard of. And because Wheat was so good, the team gave in every year. During World War I, he raised and sold mules to the U.S. Army as pack animals to make the Brooklyn team think, yeah, I'm serious about this. I'm not going to play baseball if you are not going to pay me. In 1917, Wheat got hurt for the first time in his career for an extended period of time. He played the fewest games he ever had, not counting the first year he came up, 1909, which wasn't even his rookie year. But the reason that he missed time in 17, 18, and some years after that was because he had a bunch of ankle injuries. Okay, fine. The reason why he had a bunch of ankle injuries, supposedly, is because he had really small feet. He wore a size 5. I think I wear a size 11. I've heard of having tiny hands, and that being an issue for some NFL teams. But small feet? That's a new one. However, in 1918, he did win the batting title. And he did it while not hitting a home run. There are only 2 players in baseball history to win a batting title without hitting a home run. Wheat and Rod Carew. Then in 1919, he flipped the switch and found his power again by hitting 5 home runs. That put him 8th in the National League. Then when the 20s hit, and bear in mind he was 32 years old at this point, he hit a career resurgence. 9 home runs with a .328 average, 14 homers, .320 average, 16 homers, .335, 8 homers, .375, 14 homers, .375, 14 homers, .359. By now, I hope I've made my point clear that he was one of the best hitters of his era. The end of his career came when Wilbert Robinson, who was the Brooklyn manager, and a former Yankees manager, actually, thought that Wheat was pursuing the manager's job behind his back. When Charles Ebbets died in 1925, the new team president was a man by the name of Ed McKeever. McKeever reassigned Robinson into the front office, and Wheat was player manager. He only lasted there for 2 weeks because McKeever caught pneumonia at Ebbets' funeral and died soon afterwards. Then the new guy came in, and Robinson went back to manager. Wheat, actually, if you look at his official records, isn't even counted as managing the Dodgers. You have to go back to newspaper reports to realize that he actually did. Then after his career was over in 1931, Ed's brother Steve hired Wheat as a coach. And everyone thought at the time that Wheat was going to be the manager when Robinson stepped down or was fired, whatever the case may be. And Robinson did not get along with Wheat after that point. Wheat was one of the best players of his era, one of the most underrated players of his era. He retired with 2,884 hits. He's in the Hall of Fame, as he should be. May he rest in peace. Tomorrow, you're going to hear an interview that I did with Paul Logothetis about his book on Toe Blake. I hope that's how he pronounces his name. If it's not Paul, I apologize. But regardless, until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that I'm working out every day by throwing at a wall. I'm 11-0 against it.